as we go to Parliament. Well, the minority in Parliament is holding a news conference to address some outstanding concerns on the cash for seat report, which is being debated on the floor at the moment. The minority earlier staged a walkout from Parliament over the cash for seat committee's report on the probe because it claims most of the MPs have not read the 146-page report that has been put before them to be debated. The minority leader, Haruna Idrisu, is addressing the media, and we can go live now to Parliament where the minority's press conference is ongoing.
Today, we will not be part of it tomorrow and will not be part of it forever. However, we leave it to the judgment of the Ghanaian people whether the ends of justice as a check on the executive and its excesses have been met or not, whether the ends of transparency and accountability have been satisfied. I note with concern that the majority leader used very uncharitable, indeed insulting words to describe my person and that of Dr. Ayeni and many others. Let him be served notice that he has no monopoly over insults. And that at the appropriate time, I will respond with commensurate, if not excess, insults to fit his purpose. And therefore, let me just deal with three important matters.
Okay, so that is the minority leader Haruna Idrisu there addressing a press conference flanked by other members of the minority in Parliament. Now, it's very interesting comments he has at the beginning, obviously referring to the majority leader Oseiche Mensah-Bonsu's comment about him. He says that the majority leader's words were uncharitable. He says those words were insulting as well. And the most interesting bit that he adds is the fact that he's serving notice to the majority leader that he has no monopoly over insults. He is also warning that he will respond in commensurate measure, if not in an excessive measure, as he put it there. We're hoping to get to hear what they had to say. He said he was going to address some three major concerns, and we're hoping to get that once we're able to fix that slight technical challenge that we're having there. But we have our men on the floor of Parliament live there. Latif Idrisu, Elton Brobe are all there. They'll bring us updates as and when. But if you recall, this is certainly about the cash for seat probe. Now, the committee has finished its work. The result is what's been debated. The minority say they would never, and they're very emphatic, they would never be a part of the debate. Now, this is how it all started from the main chamber earlier today. The majority in Parliament decided to go ahead with the debate on the reports. Now, the majority leader, Oseiche Mensah-Bonsu, is saying that the minority MP's non-cooperation on the matter is basically born out of their lack of understanding of parliamentary standing orders. In fact, he's used words like cock and bull stories, and those are things that he says the majority will not tolerate.
Mr. Speaker, when the Controller and Accountant General appeared before the committee, conspicuously lost in this report is what the Controller and Accountant General spoke about, contravening laws and not following due procedure in this report. Honourable members, order. And members of the committee that they were supposed to.
So there you have it, a taste of the sort of confusion that happened in Parliament today over that particular report. Let's go over to the minorities press conference and listen in. We'll be right back.
That there is contravention in terms of receipts and disbursement of money in the account. Nowhere in this godly report of the majority godly report, hands of God, hands of angel, does the controller's statement, even to improve system, is of Ofosuhene for purpose of tomorrow, does it is not right. Monies received ought to be accounted for this way, receipted this way, has no space in this godly report. Yet you want a minority to come. More importantly, again, in the report, reconciliation of bank accounts between the MEF, the foundation, the Millennium Excellence Foundation, and the Ministry of Trade. There has been no reconciliation and no access to bank accounts. The promise of the controller to deliver the bank account failed. He never submitted the account. Yet, how could we reconcile what was received between Ministry of Trade and Industry and the media, Ghana Excellence, Millennium Excellence Foundation? How can we reconcile what they received from the Ministry of Trade, what was paid from them to the Ministry of Trade, in order to properly reconcile the accounts? Yet, we do not know the truth, and we can't ask for the truth. We are only to rely on the word of a minister that we receive so and so amount. Give us the primary evidence in a bank account. At least bank account give us dates when monies were lodged, when monies were disbursed. We don't have that. In the minority, we find the conclusions of the majority report wanting. And that is why we dissociated ourselves from the motion. We have and we owe nobody an apology on this matter. As for the Speaker, to admit a motion, have a committee appointed pursuant to the motion, even when the motion was not voted upon, and the media go to the Hansard. I recall my opening remarks when Parliament came back. I said, Mr. Speaker, you got it wrong. So he is wrong today, he is wrong tomorrow, he is wrong on the rules. Even on a motion, he owes the people of Ghana and Parliament a duty to rule on the motion and to allow the House go to the standing orders. It says the House. The House is not the Speaker of Parliament, nor is it the Majority Leader. It says the House. So I had cause on the opening day of Parliament to remind him that admitting motions, not allowing a House to take a decision on the motion, and giving consequential direction to the motion is wrong per our standing orders and per the Constitution of Ghana. He has to learn the process of parliamentary practice in order to and not to question the competence of the minority. We have, and you can go to the Hansard. The day we were recalled back, not for purpose of swearing in any person for the purpose, but as Parliament, when we started this particular session, in my own opening remark, I was emphatic on it. So, ladies and gentlemen of the media, if you see the minority dissociate ourselves from it, it is because we are convinced, beyond shadow of doubt, that the ends of justice are not being served, and we will not be part of a gargantuan cover-up. We will not, to quote someone, a gargantuan cover-up. I will pay royalties as and when it's appropriate. We will not be part of it. Therefore, I'll leave out these matters so that Dr. Ayeni, who is a member of the committee, together with Deputy Leader, will go into the merits of this particular issue. But there are interesting times ahead. When it is them, there is no infringement. When it is others, there is an infringement. So, Dr. Ayeni, may I yield the floor? You may respond to those personal issues. Deputy Leader Abeji will support you as members of the committee. And in fact, again, be told that we had agreed, I'm sure Dr. Ayeni will speak to it, that on 31st, your committee was supposed to meet to look into the matter, which was declined. So the Ghanaian public must be asking the majority why they are in a hurry on this matter. In a matter which only deepens good governance, and in a matter which demonstrates our resolve to improve the transparency and accountability regime of government. So let them go and produce a bank account of the Millennium Excellence Foundation and Ministry of Trade for Reconciliation, and we can now discuss what they consider as a report. Without that, we cannot be part of any report. Without any comment to accommodate the recommendations of the Controller and Accountant General, government cashier, we won't be part of this cover-up by the ruling party and ruling government. So it's not a matter of numbers, it's a matter of substance. So Dr. Ayeni, may I now yield the floor to you to address those vexed matters. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Leader, and thank you, my colleagues, for coming. And ladies and gentlemen of the media, I am sure we would not have been here today if the majority had not adopted the attitude that they adopted from day one when Parliament was recalled on January 5th to look into this matter. It was very patent on the floor of Parliament that the majority had taken a stance that the motion should not have been brought in the first place and that Parliament should not have been recalled. Having said that, Parliament was recalled. Mr. Speaker saw the motion in terms of its substantive content as a motion that should be debated and subsequently referred to a committee. And the committee was established. Now, I regret to say that when the committee started its work, again, it was very, very clear that the majority had taken a stance on this matter. It was clear from the manner of questioning, the leading questions that were being asked, questions that were laden with answers to prepare the witnesses that had appeared before the committee to provide the answers that the majority wanted. And it reminded me of my secondary school headmaster, Brother Robert, who had a sign on his desk, and the sign read, "My mind is made up. Don't confuse me with the facts." Okay? And anytime we committed a disciplinary breach, Brother Robert you'll get into his office and he will show you that sign that his mind is made up and you don't have to confuse him with the facts. So the majority in plenary and the majority in committee had made up their mind and they had formed the conclusions that they wanted for this report. And truly, the findings of fact reflect very much what I was thinking. Now, I want to draw your attention to a number of developments that took place in committee. Whilst we were working, there was a pretense at consensus. But I knew that since their mind had been made up, they were not going to go along with us if there were adverse findings of fact against the Ministry of Trade in particular. And therefore, as we were working, we also had our own minority caucus sessions where we evaluated the evidence in accordance with the transcript of record so that the integrity of whatever we would put out at the end or our contributions to the report will reflect the views of the minority. Now, on the 31st of January, which was a Wednesday, we had gone away to a hotel somewhere in East Legon, to be precise, MJ Grand Hotel, where the committee met to look at the evidence on record. So the Secretariat had done a summary of all the evidence, and we're going through page by page. Now, the chairman of the committee was absent on that day. And when I asked where he was, I was told that he had gone to to the majority leader to seek permission, okay, so that we will have an extension of the deadline for for the presentation of our report. Now that surprised me because the majority leader is just a phone call away. So for you to leave the committee in the morning and return at 2 p.m. because you were asking for permission was very, very surprising. When the chairman returned, I want to provide you with the evidence. When he returned at 2 p.m., and that was after lunch, he presented me with a 17-page document. And that was, in his words, a draft report that he wanted me to look at. Okay? So once we were considering the evidence, he had gone away, hidden himself somewhere, and written a draft report that he then gave to me to look at. Okay? So, ladies and gentlemen of the media, this is what happened. So, we had agreed to meet back at the hotel, and if you want, you can take this document and compare it with the findings of fact of the committee. And I have done so. They are not far from each other. In fact, I think the report itself is an edited version of this draft.
Or you're just listening to Dr. Ayene there presenting his own case of what's happening. He's basically referring to a meeting by the committee held at the MJ ground in East Legon here in Accra, and they were supposed to meet to discuss the committee's reports. Now, what he's saying is that whilst they were at it, the chairman of the committee excused himself, and he was told that the chairman had to meet with the leader, a majority leader. Well, he was just going on and on about the fact that the reports, that a report was given to him to read through, where a 17-page report was given to him by the chairman of the committee, and that report is an edited version, he believes. What they have, the final report by the committee, which is being debated in Parliament, is an edited version of that 17-page report he claims to have had from the chairman of the committee. Elton Brobe has been in the main chamber, and of course he is on the line to bring us more of the majority side as well, since we've been hearing all of the minority side so far. Hello, Elton. Elton, if you can hear me, the majority leader earlier described as cock and bull stories what the majority is saying, and he's saying that they lack understanding of parliamentary procedure. He's also accusing them of dishonesty. Tell us a bit more about his position.
Well, so the issue has to do more with the lack of cooperation with him that was adopted by the minority in a run-up to preparing the report that was submitted to Parliament today. Now, according to the majority, when the minority side was called to make their input into the final report, they started playing hide and seek, and he described Dr. Dominic Ayene as a cock and bull one. For him, Dr. Dominic Ayene was called. At some point, he would not even answer his telephone. He called back at midnight claiming that his laptop had crashed and that he was out of coverage area. So many stories, according to him, was meant to delay the preparation of the report and the release and presentation that took place in Parliament. So that's how come he used those words to describe the tactics that was adopted by the minority in the run-up to preparing the report for the consideration of the plenary.
Elton, I'll have to interrupt you briefly because we have the feedback from the minorities press conference. Let's wrap up with them and we'll come back to you.
I sent him the famous midnight text that majority leader is fan of referring to. He said it on City FM, and I'm told that he said it today again on the floor of the House. I sent him a text that I had just finished reviewing the evidence and that I was doing a draft report that I wanted to submit for consideration. And I went home. The following day in the morning, I woke up early to continue work. As early as 3 a.m., I was up, and I worked till 8:30 when I called him again. And I told him, I'm not yet done with my response to the draft that he gave me. And he said, majority leader had given us 12:30 of that day, that was Thursday, the 1st of February, to come and lay the report. Little did I know that whilst I was speaking with the Honorable Chairman, Honorable Ameya Chireme, he was here on the floor of Parliament seeking to lay the same report that he was telling me was not ready. And this can be attested to by the leadership, because he was on the floor seeking on Thursday, the 1st of February, seeking to lay a report. Leadership managed to convince him that we should meet and reconcile our differing positions before we present a report to the House. I suggested to leadership that I could make it at 6 p.m. He said we should make it at 4 p.m. So I said, okay. And I came to Parliament, went into his office at 4 p.m. He was not ready. He was having a meeting. I waited till almost 5 o'clock. When he emerged from his meeting, he told me that the other two members of the committee were not available for our meeting. And I asked him a straightforward question. So is it the case that it is only the two of us who are going to meet? And he said yes. So I pulled out my now substantially completed, a minority view, and then gave it to him. And I said there was only one issue that I was addressing, and that was on fraud and misrepresentation. And he told me the evidence on fraud and misrepresentation was not up to scratch. So we debated on that evidence. He opened the transcript of record, and this is very important because instead of the summaries done by the secretariat that they have now used, he opened the transcript of record and said, can we look at what Mr. Ashim Morton said on the $100,000 payment? Because he had made a representation when he appeared before the committee that even though the benefits were publicized and promised, nobody got any benefit. So I became curious about that. Because if you make a representation, knowing at the time that you have made that representation that it is in any material particular untrue or false, that is fraud. And so I wanted to address the issue of fraudulent misrepresentation in relation to the benefits. The chairman told me that the evidence was scanty and that he thought it wasn't even necessary for me to address that. And since I was addressing the issue of forgery, I should drop that one. And I regret very much that evening I agreed and dropped the fraud and gross misrepresentation aspect of the report that I was writing. Now, when we finished that meeting, I went back to Chambers and finished the report and emailed it to him. And I told him that he should integrate the minority views into the ultimate report of the committee for purposes of presentation or laying before the House. He did not respond to that email. As we speak, he has not responded to that email. And I'm sure being a lawyer, the lawyer that he is, and by the way, we were classmates from 1991 to 1995. So he knew that the email trail was going to expose him if he responded to my email. And he did not. So after the Thursday and Friday, on Friday I came to the floor and I asked Honorable Muntaka, the Chief Whip, whether or not our report was being integrated. He asked me to talk to the chairman of the committee. I walked over to the chairman, and what he told me really shocked me. He said, you have titled it Minority Report. And once it's a minority report, there's no room in our standing orders for a minority report. And I said, okay, take off the title, look at the substantive content, and integrate it into the report for purposes of laying. He said, once I have labeled it minority report, finito. There's no way he was going, to integrate the views into the report. And actually, in the presence of Honorable Okujatu, I told him, I said, Chairman, I don't think you are acting in good faith. And he looked at me and said, you have also acted dishonestly. And I said, there has been no dishonesty in my conduct. At every point in time, I have communicated with you. And ladies and gentlemen of the press, if any one of you is interested in verifying my WhatsApp messages to the Honorable Chairman of the committee, they are here on my phone. WhatsApp is encrypted. I cannot invent them. So if you want, all the communications to him regarding process are on my WhatsApp. And in any case, if you look at the standing orders of Parliament, specifically Standing Order 210, individual members of a committee are entitled to generate reports that can be considered by the committee. And if vetted and approved by the committee, that those reports will be deemed to be the reports of the committee. So let me read out the standing order in question. Standing Order 210-1. Any member of a committee may bring up a report for its consideration. That is, a report for the consideration of the committee. And all such reports shall be fully entered in the minutes of proceedings of the committee. When all reports have been brought up, the chairman shall propose that the reports in order until one is accepted as a basis for discussion, beginning with his own report and proceeding with the remainder in the order in which they were brought up. The question to be proposed by the chairman on any report shall be, quote, that the report brought up by, let's say, Honorable Ayine or Honorable by paragraph. When this question has been agreed to, it shall not be proposed on any further reports, but any portions thereof may be amendments to the report under consideration if they are relevant to the committee. So this standing order is testimony to the fact that in a fully functioning democracy, as opposed to the dysfunctional democracy that we are trying to run in this country, minoritarian views are very, very important. And that the letter and spirit of standing order, number 210, is that respect for the views of all members of the committee is crucial. And therefore, there was nothing materially wrong for the minority to have generated its own report. In fact, we authored a report as a minority report. It was in consonance with our standing orders, and there was nothing wrong with that. So it is patently false for the majority leader to claim that I put up my phones, that I was not available for to meet with the committee. I was at all material times available for meetings of the committee, and in fact was working as a diligent member of the committee to generate the views of our side. Now let us look at the substance of the report. Yesterday, I called the clerk of the committee and asked if the report of the committee was ready. She told me the report was in the printing room and that in 30 minutes I should send someone for the report, which I did. When I got it, it was just a majority report, which basically is a compendium of the summary of evidence provided by the committee secretariat, and then the 17-page conclusions that had drawn up. I don't know whether with the assistance of his colleagues on the committee, but that 17-page report is what they now attach to the final report as the conclusions and findings of the committee. So the views of the minority were nowhere reflected as dissenting views or views that are important for purposes of the consideration of the House. Now I want us to look at some of the issues that were raised, how they were addressed, and why we think that the totality of the report runs against the grain of the evidence as heard by this committee and watched on national television live by Ghanaians. Ordinary Ghanaians with discerning minds watched as people came before this committee to lie, as people came before this committee with forged documents and they were exposed on those forged documents, and so on and so forth. So on the issue of levy and collection, which of the motion that was brought by Honorable Muntaka, what the majority members of the committee did, which is against the practice of fact-finding committees or tribunals of fact, was that they decided that in terms of the motion, the word levy should be given a legal technical meaning. And therefore, they foisted that definition on Honorable Muntaka. Now, a tribunal of fact is not supposed to do so. A tribunal of fact is open-minded. And a tribunal of fact would have asked Muntaka to explain whether the use of the term levy was in a legal technical sense or in a non-technical sense. And if he gave a non-technical definition of levy, the tribunal of fact would then move on to say, does his definition or conception of levy comport with the evidence on record? That is the exercise that we should have engaged in. And that is what we engage in. He gave us a non-technical definition. And we wanted to look at the totality of the evidence to find out whether and the extent to which that non-technical definition fitted the evidence. And when we looked at it, it was very clear that, as he said, levies are monies that you have to pay. Simple and short as that. They were monies that you have to pay. Now, in terms of the Memorandum of Understanding entered into, and by the way, the Memorandum of Understanding was legally binding on the Ministry of Trade. Okay? The ministry was supposed to, bear certain obligations. The Millennium Excellence Foundation was supposed to also bear certain obligations. And one of the obligations of the Millennium Excellence Foundation was to engage in fundraising. And the ministry was then to collect the monies into a Ministry of Finance account. Now, a Ministry of Trade account, sorry. Now, what happened is this. In the design of the package, the Millennium Excellence Foundation, as the fundraiser, basically designed the package and put price tags on each package. So, depending on where you were sitting, in relation to the seat of the President of the Republic, you were either supposed to pay $15,000, $25,000, $50,000, $75,000 at the ministerial circle, and then $100,000 at the presidential table. Now, when you have assigned price tags to each sitting area, okay, literally that is auctioning of the seats. And people had to pay in order to be able to be seated in each of those areas. So that is the manner in which we understood the Honorable Muntake's description of a levy as monies that have to be paid. And there was evidence that there were monies to be paid, and monies were paid. In fact, in the majority report, they have not denied the fact that monies were paid, and that the monies were paid in some cases in accordance with the package that was designed in collaboration with the Ministry of Trade and Industry and executed so smartly by the Millennium Excellence Foundation. So in our view, there was a levy and there was a collection of that levy. That is how we concluded the evidence. Now, when it comes to payments and disbursements, of course, the ministry hasn't denied that it received payments and that it issued a government receipt for those payments. The ministry hasn't denied the fact that it disbursed those payments, giving 3.3 million Ghana cedis to Millennium Excellence Foundation. Yes, 2.3 million Ghana cedis to the foundation, allegedly for its expenses. Now, when we asked for an account of the expenses, ladies and gentlemen of the media, as we sit now, we don't have the accounts. We also asked the Controller and Accountant General to provide us with the accounts detailing how the bank statement detailing how payments were made to Millennium Excellence Foundation. And the Controller and Accountant General, as the chief accountant of this country, has not supplied the committee with the bank statement. So, and the same controller came here before the committee when Abeji put it to him that there was a violation of Regulation 14 of the Financial Administration Regulations. He answered in the affirmative. It's on the record. I'm sure Honorable Abeji will address that. So there was a violation of the Financial Administration Regulations. Now, when during the plenary, Honorable Asibe Yeboah tried to go around this issue by speaking of the fact that the Financial Administration Regulations are outmoded and so on. They may be outmoded, but that is the law. That is the current law, and no Minister of State should violate those regulations and be exonerated by the Parliament of the Republic of Ghana. And so there was a categorical statement by the Controller and Accountant General that Regulation 14 was violated. It was breached. That is on record. Now, if you read the majority report, there's nothing of that kind. Basically, what they have done is to take refuge in the notion of PPP, that this is a gray area. and there was no legal regime governing PPPs. For God's sake, these are plain, simple payments that were made into a government account and disbursed in violation of existing regulations. We cannot take cover under the notion of PPP as a basis for saying that the minister or the ministry should not, have complied with the regulations. Then there were a number of relevant matters that we raised in the course of the hearings of the committee and then the meetings of the committee. An important issue that we raised was the issue relating to forgery. And then paradoxically, today, we, the minority members, are being accused, especially Honorables Muntaka and Okujeto, of forging documents. I can tell you without any fear of contradiction that that has not happened. And take it from me, I'm a man of integrity. Yeah. So I want to demonstrate to you, ladies and gentlemen of the press, why the forgery happened on the other side and was glossed over by the majority report. Now, I have here in my hand a document that was submitted and labeled as MOTI 6, Exhibit MOTI 6. MOTI means Ministry of Trade and Industry 6. We'll give you copies afterwards. Yes. Now, MOTI 6 was tendered by the minister when he appeared before the committee. MOTI 6 is a letter. Honorable Alan Chiramenting was the one who tendered this document. Now, it is a letter to the Honorable Minister dated 6 April 2017, and it is titled Top Expatriates Business Awards. When they started it, it was Top Expatriates Business Awards, and then it got changed to Ghana, Expatriates Business Award. Now, this letter was addressed to the minister, asking for his support and collaboration for the establishment of the award. When the letter was written, was tendered in evidence, I noticed that normally, as a matter of practice and convention at ministries, letters that are received are stamped as received and dated. Okay? They are also usually minuted by the responsible officer to persons who were supposed to take action. So since it was directed to the minister, I expected that I would see a minute of the minister on this letter. Since I didn't see that, I asked the minister whether this was the original. And he said no, it wasn't the original. And I asked him, can he supply the committee with the original? He said yes, and sent for the original. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is the original letter. Okay, this is the original letter with a date, the stamp of the ministry, with the minutes of the minister and all responsible officers. In fact, there were about 5 minutes on this letter. Now you ask yourself, why would a minister appearing before a committee of parliament established to investigate the actions of his ministry tender a letter that is not the original? The reason why he didn't do so, maybe he didn't know, or maybe he knew. The reason he didn't do so was because this letter was a forgery. MOTI number 6 was forged. And the reason why MOTI number 6 is forged is that, you see, when you look at the left-hand corner, okay, it has the designations of all there is in the officers of the foundation. Okay, now up here, Mr. Ashim Morton was described as president, and you would understand why he was described here as president. Okay, in the original, he is described as founder and chairman. All right. He is described as founder and chairman. And then also, if you look at the signatures appearing after each, they are different signatures. This was all, altered later in time when this controversy came up, and because of the fact that the minority had asserted that the president in the package referred to the president of the Republic of Ghana. And so, in order to go around that, they forged Moti 6 and tendered it before the committee through the minister. All right? So if anybody has forged documents, it is not the minority. And in fact, the minister perjured himself, because you appear before a parliamentary committee, take an oath, and you tender false documents. That is perjury. Okay? Now, there is another dimension to this on the issue of president, and that is the reason why they are so frantic about this. And this one too, the committee glossed over it, didn't address it, or explain why different letters had been tendered by the minister. Now, the other critical letter, the other critical document that was brought before this committee was the benefits package. Both Honorable Muntaka and Honorable Ablakwa tendered in evidence the benefits package as they obtained it. And in that benefits package, there was a ministerial circle. So from the presidential circle, you came down to the ministerial circle.
There will be Holy Mass tomorrow, 7th February 2018. Time.
They are doing intentionally.
Venue, the 600 Chapel.
It's deliberate.
Staff and National Service personnel are cordially invited to worship with us. Thank you.
That is a minority press conference happening in Parliament. We can go back there now. There was a break in there was a break in there for an announcement there. Let's go back and listen to Dr. Ine.
Documents were tendered. Ashim Morton came before this committee. And then in his haste to explain that he was the president that was being referred to, he tendered documents showing that there was nothing like a ministerial, a circle. And then he actually pointed
Take the announcement
to...
again. There will be Holy Mass tomorrow, 7th February 2018. Time, 8:30 a.m.
Can you send somebody to whip this person?
Job 600 Chapel. All MPs, staff and National Service personnel are cordially invited to worship with us. Thank you.
So what actually happened was that he tendered in documents showing that the benefits package, showing that there was no ministerial circle. And he actually said that he had never seen, when the document tendered in by Honorables Okujeto and then Muntaka was shown to him, he said he had never seen those documents and that they were doctored. Those were his ways. Now, we met the businesses in camera at the request of the businesses. And unfortunately for Ashim Morton, and also unfortunately for the majority, two of the businesses tendered documents that corroborated the documents tendered by Muntaka and Okujeto. All right? Now, I thought that we were going to treat the evidence of the businesses as discrete, but somehow or another, they have, openly quoted the businesses in support of their case. So I am going to let you know that it was Tigo Airtel, or is it Airtel Tigo, that submitted an email sent by a lady called Lodina, not the former first lady, tendered by Lodina, who works with Ashim Morton's office, to Airtel Tigo, and their head of legal and corporate services made available that email together with the benefits package as sent by Ashim Morton to them. And it has the ministerial circle. Yes. Oh. All right? Also, Construction also tendered a document that is the same document here. Concert number 4. Okay? Concert number 4 showed...
The the Social Security and National Insurance Trust.
You see MPP. You see MPP.
They know we are here. Parliament and parliamentary service staff who are yet to
Very unclear what's happening in the background there, but every now and then there seems to be an announcement ongoing. These are live visuals coming from Parliament, where the minority is holding their press conference, presenting their own version of the committee, or the Cash for Seat Committee's report. Mr. Ayene has been speaking about his version, and it keeps being truncated by the announcement of sorts that's coming through from the location. We can go there now. It seems he's
who bond up, but you know. Now this document was also tendered by Consar Limited, and Consar tendered it in evidence in camera to us, and it shows also that there was a ministerial circle. Now, why were they so desperate to show that there was no ministerial circle? It is because Honorable Muntaka, followed by Honorable Okudzato, had asked the rhetorical question. So if you say you are the president, do you have ministers? Why was there a ministerial circle? All right. So in order to desperately get around this trap, he went and forged the documents and presented them before the committee. And the chairman's report, or the majority report, does not reflect these situations. This is grossly dishonest. And they are the ones who are rather calling us dishonest and fraudulent. I think it is a fit case of the kettle calling the pot black. Now, there is also the issue of extortion. I am surprised that, given the chairman's, pedigree as a lawyer, he would not understand that there are two elements, that there are two forms of extortion. There's what you will call the gunman situation, where you put a gun to the person's head and say, bring the money, or I'll shoot you. Or
Dr. Dominic Ayene there speaking about the minorities report as far as the Cash for Seat report is concerned. Earlier on, we saw the majority leader call the minority dishonest and describe their story as cock and bull. Actually, he says they are being ignorant of parliamentary procedure. The minority do not think so, and they are giving information as to why they've come to that conclusion. They are accusing the trade minister of perjury. They say that some documents were forged, etc. We'll bring you some more analysis on this as and when we progress, and in most of our bulletins as the days go on.